Greetings. This is the Sabbath the Mage Experiment. This is a reading from Eliphas Levi's Transcendental Magic, its Doctrine and Ritual. And this chapter is 15, the Sabbath of the Sorcerers. We recur once more to that terrible number 15, symbolized in the tarot by a monster throned upon an altar, mitred and horned, having a woman's breasts and the generative organs of a man, a chimera, a malformed sphinx, a synthesis of deformities. Below this figure we read a frank and simple inscription: the devil. Yes, we confront here the phantom of all terrors, the dragon of all theogonies, the Ahriman of the Persians, the Typhon of the Egyptians, the Python of the Greeks, the old serpent of the Hebrews, the fantastic monster, the nightmare, the croque-mitaine, the gargoyle, the great beast of the Middle Ages, and, worse than all these, the Baphomet of the Templars, the bearded idol of the alchemist, the obscene deity of Mendes, the goat of the Sabbath. The frontispiece to this ritual reproduces the exact figure of the terrible Emperor of Night, with all his attributes and all his characters. Let us state now, for the edification of the vulgar, for the satisfaction of Monsieur le Comte de Merville, for the justification of the demonologist Baudin, for the greater glory of the Church, which persecuted Templars, burnt magicians, excommunicated Freemasons, etc., let us state boldly and precisely that all inferior initiates of the occult science and profaners of the great arcanum not only did in the past, but do now and will ever adore what is signified by this alarming symbol. Yes, in our profound conviction, the Grand Masters of the Order of the Templars worshipped the Baphomet, and caused it to be worshipped by their initiates. Yes, there existed in the past, and there may be still in the present, assemblies which are presided over by this figure, seated on a throne and having a flaming torch between the horns. But the adorers of this sign do not consider, as do we, that it is a representation of the devil. On the contrary, for them it is that of the god Pan, the god of our modern schools of philosophy, the god of the Alexandrian theurgic schools and of our own mystical Neoplatonists, the god of Lamartine and Victor Cousin, the god of Spinoza and Plato, the god of the primitive Gnostic schools, the Christ also of the dissident priesthood. This last qualification, ascribed to the goat of black magic, will not astonish students of religious antiquities, who are acquainted with the phases of symbolism and doctrine in their various transformations, whether in India, Egypt, or Judea. The bull, the dog, and the goat are the three symbolical animals of Hermetic magic, resuming all the traditions of Egypt and India. The bull represents the earth, or salt of the philosophers. The dog is Hermanubis, the Mercury of the sages, otherwise fluid, air, and water. The goat represents fire and is at the same time the symbol of generation. Two goats, one pure and one impure, were consecrated in Judea. The first was sacrificed in expiation for sins. The other, loaded with those sins by imprecation, was set at liberty in the desert. A strange ordinance, but one of deep symbolism, signifying reconciliation by sacrifice and expiation by liberty. Now, all the fathers of the Church who have concerned themselves with Jewish symbolism have recognized in the immolated goat the figure of him who assumed, as they say, the very form of sin. Hence the Gnostics were not outside symbolical traditions when they assigned this same mystical figure to Christ the Liberator. All the Kabbalah and all magic, as a fact, are divided between the cultist of the immolated and that of the emissary goat. We must recognize, therefore, a magic of the sanctuary and that of the wilderness, the white and the black church, the priesthood of public assemblies and the Sanhedrim of the Sabbath. The goat which is represented in our frontispiece bears upon its forehead the sign of the pentagram, with one point in the ascendant, which is sufficient to distinguish it as a symbol of the light. Moreover, the sign of occultism is made with both hands, pointing upward to the white moon of Hesed and downward to the black moon of Gabura. This sign expresses the perfect concord between mercy and justice. One of the arms is feminine and the other masculine, as in the androgyne of Kunrath, whose attributes we have combined with those of our goat, since they are one and the same symbol. The torch of intelligence burning between the horns is the magical light of universal equilibrium. It is also the type of the soul exalted above matter, even while cleaving to matter, as the flame cleaves to the torch. The monstrous head of the animal expresses horror of sin, for which the material agent, alone responsible, must alone and forever bear the penalty, because the soul is impassible in its nature and can suffer only by materializing. The caduceus, which replaces the generative organ, represents eternal life. The scale-covered belly typifies water. The circle above it is the atmosphere. The feathers still higher up signify the volatile. Lastly, humanity is depicted by the two breasts and androgyne arms of this sphinx of the occult sciences. Behold the shadows of the infernal sanctuary dissipated. Behold the sphinx of medieval terrors unveiled and cast from his throne. Quomodo, si sedisti, Lucifer.